rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for the invocation by Deacon Ken Carpinelli of St. John's Episcopal Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I want to be able to offer a couple prayers, especially since we have the beginning of a new school year. We've already had, unfortunately, tragedy in a school. And on Wednesday, we will be looking at the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. So I ask if we would, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come together tonight asking for your guidance, your help, your wisdom and strength. Pray, Lord, for this council meeting tonight. Give the council members wisdom and guidance as they deliberate on the items before them. May every decision that they make be fair and righteous in your sight. And for the benefit of the members of Gloucester Township. I also want to pray, mighty God, bless this beautiful world. Lead her leaders from falsehood into truth and justice. Guard and defend all of your children. Rekindle in all the citizens of your world the fire of your love, and inspire us to love one another's and to be peacemakers. I pray all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Carpinelli. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which designated the time and date and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using an electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. We request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device be so utilized by a Township Clerk's office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Mignon?
Here.
Mrs. Albrecht Troxel? Here. Mrs. Love, Briggs Love? Here. Mr. Nash?
Here.
Mrs. Walters? Here. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Parliament?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Captain Colmeyer?
Present.
Mr. McGill?
Here. We now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone addressing council may speak one time. Once all those wishing to address council have had their turns, they may address council second time. Only if that's what was said earlier, not repeating earlier statement. These speakers entitled to 3 minutes. There'll be 15 minutes for the first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Yes.
Good evening, Dina Hendry, Summerdale.
Good evening.
It was really nice to see the discussion of the batting cages during the public workshop that was going on. I do agree with Councilwoman Winters that if teams are utilizing these batting cages, then they should be fundraising for them. It should not fall on the burden of the taxpayers, especially if they're not open to the public for enjoyment as one like a pickleball court or something like that. I am for youth sports, don't get me wrong. I have 3 children who play flag football. You know, if there was something that was needed extra of an enhancement, I would have no problems putting on a fundraiser or taking part of a fundraiser for these enhancements. So I ask, you know, why is this the burden of the taxpayers, not the teams?
This is a enhancement to our recreation program. All of our our baseball organizations and softball organizations have asked for additional amenities over the years for their particular program. This specifically, the genesis of it was Aerial Baseball wanted their own batting cage. And then when the bids came back, they were extremely high. Mr. Cardis had a conversation with them and indicated that this would be centrally located at Hicksdale Park to allow the 4 prominent baseball organizations along with the softball organization to use that. But this just adds, I believe, to the recreational activities and what we have to offer here for our residents. That's my own personal opinion.
But I wouldn't be able to take my boys unless if they are a part of a baseball team, correct?
That has not been established. We were, you heard our discussion.
Yeah, it was just
here.
a bid process, but I mean, that is the basis, that it is for youth sports, not for the general public to use. And then also we have to think about the facility. It's gonna have a bathroom, so it's gonna need water and electricity and sewer and a salary and possibly insurance. So, I mean, I think we put the cart before the horse a little bit into getting bids. We should have thought about this before and said, okay, what are these things that we need before we say, okay, let's put it out to bid. That's just what I'm saying. And then also you mentioned that there was a meeting last week when you guys talked about recreation. What was the premise of that meeting of what was needed?
Mr. Cardis had mentioned that there was a meeting where we met with organizations, recreational organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Ms. Smith.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Shawn C. Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. May I ask, what is the agenda item assigned to that, the batting cages that were being discussed at the workshop?
Resolution 307.
Okay, it wasn't announced. And also
Well, the resolutions are not, we don't have a number for them during the workshop. They were put on the formal agenda.
well, the first public speaking is for agenda items only, and I was surprised to hear that something that was just discussed 20 minutes ago at a workshop was already on the agenda.
But if we did not want to move forward with it, that could have been pulled.
Oh, thank you for informing me. I did not realize that items that were discussed at a workshop prior to a Gloucester Township Council meeting were permitted to be discussed during the first public speaking section. I thought that this portion was strictly for agenda items only, things that are to be questioned, put on, or taken off. I thought that anything that was discussed prior to this meeting at something such as a workshop would be discussed during the second public portion. I'll speak up more often if I'm ever in attendance. Again, I tried to attend the workshops. Somebody was very gracious and it made me aware that there are workshops the second Monday of each month prior to the Gloucester Township Council meetings, but we're not permitted to speak. They're not recorded. They're not necessarily even advertised so much.
No, that's incorrect. You are permitted to speak during the workshop.
Public is permitted to speak during the workshop?
Yes. You were here during the meeting.
We're permitted to attend, but we're not permitted to
No, you're
participate.
permitted. There's a public portion during the workshop.
But we're not permitted to participate in the meeting itself. The non-agenda items on a workshop, thank you. As a member of the public, I appreciate being given an opportunity to speak before most meetings. But we're not permitted to participate in those workshops.
There's
There's no comment on anything that is discussed during those workshops. There's no public comment.
That is incorrect. There is public comment on the workshop, Ms. Smith.
I was just at that workshop.
It's listed on the agenda. There's a public comment. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Where's the agenda then for the Gloucester Township workshop session that was just in attendance?
So we have that's on the board and also on the front door.
It is not on the board.
It's not on the board?
It is on the front door.
It's on the front door.
Wouldn't that have to be posted
In
on
the
the bulletin
future,
board?
Ms. Clerk, Madam Clerk, can we have that on the bulletin board?
The agenda only?
Yes, for the workshop, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for your time.
Oh, and today's date?
Excuse me?
Today's date, it was not announced what the day was for this Gloucester Township Council
September
meeting.
9th, 2024.
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak that's not spoken yet? Yes, ma'am.
Tina Hendry again, Summerdale. The last question that I asked was, what was the premise of the meeting in Wednesday?
The premise of the meeting, I'm sure you're aware of it. You're aware of it?
I'm asking.
Are you about, or you know? So there was a meeting held with sports organizations to talk about if the passing of the referendum for the sewer, that there could be a possibility of having $10 to $15 million available for recreation. And then we met with 10 organizations that were represented that evening, and they discussed some of the needs and challenges that they have as an organization. They talked about the enrollment that they have and ways that the township can help them. They also discussed the fundraising that they do individually for each organization as well.
So the meeting, was the batting cages discussed before the meeting or during the meeting, and that's why it's on the agenda?
No, the batting cages were brought in as part of the discussion. These batting cages have been talked about for about a year and a half.
Okay, and so the meeting that took place was a recreational meeting?
We invited the recreation organizations to discuss what their needs are.
Okay, in regards to if the sewer gets sold,
That is correct.
was it open to the public?
The recreation organizations were invited.
Okay,
The leaders
was
of-
there minutes for that meeting?
No minutes.
No minutes? Who was in attendance of that meeting?
Who was in attendance? Mr. Cardis, myself, and Mr. Mignon, and then different organizations.
Basically for their wish lists.
They provided some of the needs that they had for the organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the first public portion. Waive the reading, accept the minutes of special session August 8th, workshop session August 12th, and regular session August 12th and August 26th. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second
Second.
on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
I abstain on August 8th special meeting. I also abstain on August 12th, the workshop, and August 12th, the meeting.
Mrs. Grace Love?
I abstain on the August 8th meeting, yes to August 12th. I abstain on August 26th, and yes to August 12th.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, abstain to the workshop session of August 12th, 2024. Yes to the rest.
And I vote yes for August 26th.
Thank you.
Bid report. May I have a motion, please?
Make that motion.
A second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Grace Love?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-24-20, ordinance amending chapter 81-32A of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This amends section 81-32A designated as the do not block the box, hereby amended to include the following locations: Blackwood Clementon Road at the Blackwood Fire Department exit and Almanesson Road at the Blenheim Fire Department exit. We will now have a public hearing for this. Anyone wish to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, close the public hearing. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Grace Love?
Yes.
Mr. Nash?
Yes.
Mrs. Walters?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance, first reading and introduction. There will be a hearing at the second reading. In order to the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, State of New Jersey, adopting the amendment to the Villages of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan in accordance with NJSA 4812A-1 at SEC local redevelopment and housing law. This was a discussion took place at our redevelopment meeting, and this is adopting an amendment to the Villages of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Manio,
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Yes.
Mrs. Grace Love,
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. Next is our consent agenda. Any council member would like to have any item removed, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Manio,
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Yes.
Mrs. Grace Love,
Yes.
Mr. Nash.
Yes.
Mrs. Walters.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. Next is our GTE Gov Access email. We have one email from Valerie Jones at 640 Lower Landing Road, Blackman, New Jersey. Who is the sewer system being sold to? The sewer system, the winning bid was a New Jersey American Water, and no sale will go forward, Ms. Jones, unless that is approved by the voters of Gloucester Township on November 5th. There will be a referendum on whether to sell the sewer system or not. With that, we'll open up our second public portion. This is for any item the public wishes to address. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes. You may speak once. Once everyone has spoken, you may speak a second time, only if it adds to what was said earlier, not repeating any earlier statements. Now open up the second public portion. Yes, Ms. Hendry.
Tina Hendry, Summerdale. Regarding this meeting that took place on Wednesday, was the referendum discussed?
Briefly.
Meaning, like, can you elaborate on that?
There were some questions from the sports organizations regarding that, what happens if it passes and what happens if it doesn't pass.
Okay. Do you think that you're gonna have another meeting maybe with residents of this township? Being that you had a meeting with sports leaders, are you gonna have a meeting with the residents to see if it passes, what they would be interested in to do with the money?
So those individuals are residents of our township as well. There may be some other meetings that may take place, and I believe that there may be some town hall meetings that New Jersey American Water may facilitate.
And this meeting that took place on Wednesday, how did it come about? Like, was there an email, a phone call?
Ms. Hendry, I think you know the.
I may know the question, but I just want you on record to say how it came about.
Exactly, but you know the answer.
But I want to clarify.
Mr. Cardis contacted the recreation organizations. Mr. Cardis, one of his responsibilities, he oversees the recreation department too. And he works closely with these recreational organizations. He contacted those recreational organizations and asked them if they would be interested in meeting. And we had 10 organizations that are represented that evening that came with thoughts and ideas about it. In fact, one individual had commented at the beginning of this, because what he read online, he said, absolutely not. But then when he got additional information.
He got the survey. When he got the survey, then he changed his mind. Sir, I was outside that room. I know exactly what was said.
No.
So I was there. So here's the other question I have.
Those questions.
I just wanted to have it out there on the record. Also, is that part of the business administrator's responsibilities to call people and say, hey, listen, I heard you have some needs. Come to this meeting?
Absolutely, yes. He oversees the recreation department as well.
Okay. Don't you find this weird, underhanded, sneaky, sly, slimy, deceitful?
Where were you standing at that meeting?
It's a public building.
Were you standing outside of the meeting? that
It's a
you were not
public-
Invited to?
There was a sign. I'm a part of
Could that
recreation.
be sneaky, slimy,
Absolutely.
underhanded?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't think.
But
it is.
here's the thing.
I don't
I
think
have no problem saying what I do where you,
I had no problem saying what I do as well.
okay.
We had a meeting. We discussed their needs.
So
I was
when,
there for an hour and 20 minutes.
so when is there going to be a meeting for the residents?
I don't know. I can't give you that, but there will be.
But sports takes precedence.
No, there'll be a meeting with, most likely with, arts groups, senior groups, different community groups. Absolutely.
But not the residents as a whole. That
They
takes
are,
precedence.
they are residents as
As a
well.
whole, not as an interest group.
They are residents as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Brown.
David Brown, 5 Maple Road, Centerville.
Good evening, Mr. Brown.
How you doing today?
Fine, how are you?
All right. Glad to see the American flag is properly.
Oh, yeah, we got new stuff. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We do appreciate it.
Glad to see that. I do have some questions about this program too, but first off, I remember when we were talked about the solar panels were going to save us $400,000 a year for revenue taxes or whatever. And then selling them premium outlets, the land there and all that. How much money revenue wise are we making off of that every year?
Off the outlet, I don't have a figure for me. I will tell you, at the time, when that parcel of land was sold, it was farmland assessed, and we were bringing less than $6,000
Right.
in taxes on a 60-acre plus plot of land.
And right. And
They had a
so-
5-year tax abatement, and
Right.
that sunset over 2 years ago.
Right.
Because-
60 million.
So, but that's assessed that, but, so that in 2015, they received that tax abatement, and that sunset, so 4 years ago. So they are fully paying taxes to all the tax entities. I can't give you, it's over $1 million,
Okay. So,
but I can give you an exact amount.
okay. And now we're
The next meeting.
distribution marijuana revenue sales for last year runs about how much?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Revenue from the
Selling
cannabis.
from cannabis.
I don't have those numbers.
Okay. So maybe
I'm not gonna
200,000.
guess. I'm not gonna guess, no.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Vargas, is that something you can provide, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Well, I'm just looking at, so now we've saved $1.5 million every year. Where's that money going to for us to having to, all of a sudden, we're in so much debt, now we gotta sell the union jobs off to bring money in our pockets. We're gonna,
No, that's incorrect. You were on the last meeting.
no.
Those jobs are staying here. They are being folded into the township. There is a sidebar agreement with the Teamsters Union. All 23 individuals that are part of the sewer unit will now remain with the township. Or they have the option to go to American Water.
And you passed that resolution.
Okay, so they're gonna be working for the township in the water department or not in the water department at all?
Well,
'Cause
I don't know
they're
if
gonna have
you
to learn a
learned
new trade.
were you here at the August 8th meeting? We talked about
Not for sure.
cleanouts. There are cleanouts that take place. So you're responsible for your home from the curb to the house. And what was happening is cleanouts were taking place that normally you would get a plumber, you would get charged for, that are taking place and they're being gratis, free to residents. So that is going to continue. So there are people that will be doing that job. There may be other responsibilities that they'll have in public works. There may be a separate division created within that particular department. But those individuals, a sidebar agreement was signed off with their leadership, the Teamsters, and they have the option, those union jobs, as you said, to stay with the township or go to New Jersey American Water.
Okay, so they have the option either stay with the
Correct.
township or go.
Correct.
All right, well, that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
As I know in '93, we signed NAFTA into place. And I know we had 2 Democrat congressmen from New Jersey who signed on to it, and we lost 920,000 union jobs because of that. I was one of them. I lost my job. It went to, one part of it went to China, the other part went to Mexico. I was in the United Steelworkers. I went from making $27 an hour to $13.50. And I just want to make sure that these union guys didn't get treated like we did. But I still have a question. We saved $1.5 million a year in tax money, and we spent it all. I know we cut back to 4-day work weeks to save money. How much money did that actually save the township by doing that?
Those 4-day work weeks go back to the late 70s.
For the township here?
Yes.
I thought y'all always worked Fridays when I moved here.
So what they did is, there was a 4-day work week, but it was Monday through Friday. The building was open at the time. And then during the recession, Mayor Ralph Hatton at the time had shrunk it down to 4 days, Monday through Thursday, and Friday the building was closed. But there used to be a skeleton crew here on a Friday.
Oh, okay, because I know when I moved here, I was still able to come up here on Fridays. But now it's no longer Fridays closed.
No, it's closed.
Okay.
Miss
But is that
Brown?
saving us any money?
Mr. Cardis, your time is up, and Mr. Cardis can you answer that?
No, I don't have any computations on what the savings is.
Usually saves electricity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have figures and I'm not gonna throw anything out.
Yeah, because I know I've come up here on Friday to the police department and this is still lit up and everything. So, I was just wondering.
All right, thank you. Ms. Smithman.
Hi, good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. Hello, good evening, council.
Good evening.
Summer is now over. I hope everyone had a nice summer vacation, summer weather. I have been spending my time as a civilian citizen here in Gloucester Township, New Jersey, considered Clementon, New Jersey, trying to undo a type of possible fraud and identity theft occurring to myself. I don't know how many people heard me try to get some type of answer from the local police department while at the meeting. It did not seem out of line. The Gloucester Township, New Jersey Police Department Chief of Police, David Harkins, felt he could bring it upon himself to bring my personal information to several of the council meetings, while I have never reviewed any of it with him at any council meeting or at the municipality or at the police station. I have never discussed or been asked any questions by the Chief of Gloucester Township Police Department. On Saturday, a letter arrived, could have arrived on Friday or Saturday of this month of September, from the Social Security Administration or the Department Treasury. It appears to be a check, but it has the company that I was trying to have them investigate of the possible fraud and identity complication or theft. The check is written to them, but it goes to my apartment unit of one of the two ways to write the address to my apartment unit. I don't know what to do with this piece of paper. I was told that the case was open and shut. There was no fraud found. And while being a patient of South Jersey Behavioral Health Resources, they told me several months ago that I'm not active. I'm not even one of their patients anymore, yet a therapist still arrives to my apartment. Most recently, very suspicious behavior. That was this month of September 2024. I was told that the funds from the Social Security Administration for Social Security Disability Insurance were being deposited electronically on my behalf. This is a paper check. I'm asking council, what do I do? What does a citizen do? Because now no funds are going to my apartment unit. I was told I was not able to request funds to pay my own rent. Close to $2,000 a month gets deposited on my behalf that I don't get to see, touch, or explain anything, including a deposit of close to, if not more than $100,000 of federal funds. That is not small change. $5 used to be a federal offense if you stole something from the federal government. They could put you in prison for that. This is close to $100,000. I have been asking this council, now, what am I supposed to do? Who do I go to when I am being blocked by this local police department? Asking them to investigate possible identity theft and fraud. involving South Jersey Behavioral Health Resources, not because I think that they're the criminal. They need their help. If that company tried to make a report and the police went along with whoever was actually doing the theft, that company who is trying to help thousands of people with mental and behavioral health issues to remain independent, to remain part of the community, is not receiving assistance either.
Ms. Smithman, you said you've asked council for direction on this, and we have tried to provide direction to you to work with the police department, and you refused to work with the police.
That is not true. I made,
This
that is not, whoa. I have
Ms.
made,
Smith-
I have
Ms.
filed
Smithman.
several voluntary statements and opened a fraud case. I have brought every piece of information that the township police would need. I brought my lease for my apartment unit from when it started. I brought all the social security administration for the social security disability insurance, all the deposits, all the payment, everything that was needed. Information from my local union.
Ms. Smithman, this is not in the purview of the township. This is something that you would have to discuss again with the police department, and we've instructed you to do that. We can't help you as a council here. We've told you to have a conversation with the police department. You've refused to have conversations with the chief.
That is not true. I refused to have a conversation at 10 o'clock at night after a council meeting.
No, okay.
That was the only time I was ever afforded.
Thank you, Ms. Smithman, for your time. I appreciate it. Mr.
Excuse me, I
Polidoro?
have lived in this township
Mr. Polidoro?
since 2015.
Ms. Smithman, please take a seat.
I was brought to this township in 1977.
Ms. Smithman, I'm going to ask you one more time. Please take a seat.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidor from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening.
So, this past week, we all received a nice, colorful, what looked like political flyer in the mail. And some of the conversation that we've had on the sale of the sewer and the different sides of which you guys unanimously decided that this was worthwhile. What I'm a little curious about is at the bottom of this, it says paid for by New Jersey American Water. It also indicates that they're saying that you're going to pay off all the debt and lower property taxes for the next 5 years. The fact that this is paid for by New Jersey American Water, the investor who's looking to put all that money into your hands is speaking governmentally on what they believe you'll do. They also believe that you'll secure $10 to $15 million of support for recreational enhancement, which was that meeting that you guys had, ton of sports groups, that there's a windfall of money for them as well. Is this something that you guys, the legislative branch, endorse? Or are you okay with New Jersey American Water telling us in the mail how you're supposed to, this is what you're gonna do?
Mr. Polidoro, that's a conversation that we had with New Jersey American Water when they asked us, what would you do after you paid the debt? We put a plan together. There's many times you stood at that microphone and asked us, what is your plan going forward with any type of things? Have you budgeted? What are you going to do? Remember when the cameras went away? You say, what are you going to do to replace that money? So this is what we're doing. We're planning. If this moves forward, these are some of the plans that we have in place, Mr. Polidoro.
Okay, so what you say you're going to do in the way of debt. First off, going back to Ms. Hendricks' comment about this meeting and closed meeting and what have you, you're telling the sports groups as you've gathered them, and I know that you guys have people in place that run these, and you have a great line of communication open with them. You always did, sometimes better than others. But when you're telling them that there's a windfall of money that's going to go their way, when you are not even having a schedule out of how you're going to pay the debt off, and also, which would bring me to this question, the township debt, we know how much that is at this point, but how much debt will you be able to pay each year? There should be a limited amount that you can pay on debt. Is that correct? In a short answer, please.
Mr. Gores?
The question really doesn't make any sense to me, Ray.
So you can't pay the
By
debt
state-
all off at
by
once.
state law, we are first required to pay all the debt of the sewer utility and all the debt of the township.
But you can't pay
That's
that
the
all off at once,
65
correct?
million. And what you point out that you're saying New Jersey American Water came up with is what the township came up with before New Jersey American Water put anything on paper and sent anything out. This was on our website, and this is our document.
Okay, in the short answer, how much will you pay off in debt per year? Because you're not gonna pay the whole thing off at once.
The entire
All
amount,
at once.
all of it.
And the bondholders are gonna, this all be paid off at one time?
If there are bondholders, the money is held in escrow until such time as the investment matures, or if there's a call option, then it gets paid off.
Okay, so as I'm looking at all of this and the money that's gonna come your way, and the fact that you still have not proven me wrong, which direction the bills are going. And let's say that you took a sidestep on me and said, well, no, the math does work out, but it's going to be divided amongst all the other people within the New Jersey American Water Program. Well, this has only just begun where they're procuring sewers in different townships. It's only just begun where they're going to procure more. And as they begin to procure more sewers from different towns, they're going to tell those people the same thing. Oh, you're not going to get, it's not going to come down on you. That's where we come in. Now our rates will raise to help them buy more and more sewer systems. As this begins, as this gets bigger, there's no way that we're not going to be paying $80, $90, $100 a month for the sewer. And at some point, if you're in Aqua territory, who's to know that they're not going to play? Let's make a deal. Let's take care of the water coming in, the water going out, Camden County, sewer. That's going to be the same thing. This is going to cost people a lot of money. And what some people would say is throwing $10 to $15 million in front of a crowd of sports people. And you guys know I coach sports and been involved in sports in this town a long time, and I'm all for it, always have been. But some folks might think that conversation's a bribe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Ms. Coyne?
Denise Queen, Shoes Landing. Could you please explain to the residents, Mr. Cardis said that New Jersey American Water said, how are you going to spend this money? And you guys came up with this plan. Who exactly came up with the plan of how you're going to spend the money?
Mr. Cars had a conversation with me and other members of council and talked about some of the things that we could utilize this money for. So property tax relief, reduce taxes, freeze them, provide money for arts and culture and recreation, provide money for our first responders, guaranteed employment for employees. Those bullet points, that is the conversation that the business administrator, because he can't have that conversation with the mayor, and no conversation took place with the mayor regarding this. He's the business administrator, he was representing the administration, so that conversation took place.
And who represented the public?
The town council, the people who were elected by the public.
And when was that council meeting held to have that discussion?
No, the town folks here. We have discussions that take place. They are planning purposes.
Isn't that supposed to be a public meeting?
No.
When our representatives meet to discuss our welfare and our best interests, that shouldn't be a public
We've
discussion?
had conversations since March here in public talking about this referendum.
We have, and we've asked multiple times how that money will be spent, and the $10 to $15 million on sports was never mentioned. The only thing that was ever mentioned, as a matter of fact, was paying down the debt and possibly the taxes, but nothing else was mentioned.
No, it wasn't.
So-
You're correct, because August 8th was the second reading of the ordinance.
So my question,
We were not gonna put the cart before the horse.
my question is, when was the public represented in these discussions on how these decisions and commitments were made?
We represent the public.
Okay,
Township
but
council.
there was never a public meeting on that, and there was never a council workshop. So if there was a council meeting, it should have been a public meeting, should it have not? When you're discussing public business involving public money, that shouldn't be a public meeting?
The administration came to myself and they had conversations with other members of council about these bullet points. And that's how
So
we moved-
again,
and
when,
that's how we moved forward with it, okay?
should that have not been a public meeting to
We
discuss
represent-
spending public money?
We represent the residents of Gloucester Township. We were elected to represent them. We put this forward. The residents will ultimately decide on November 5th.
You didn't answer my question.
I did.
You didn't.
Let you know. You didn't.
When you're
like my answer.
discussing spending public funds, public
Yes.
money, and you're saying our representatives talked about it, shouldn't that have been a public meeting for public input?
So every dollar you want us to have a public meeting, there are many items.
$10 to $15 million,
The resolution
absolutely.
that takes place, we have several resolutions, ordinance that take place. We cannot have a public meeting for each specific resolution.
10 to $15 million
We have bullet
is
points that
not
are
a
put in
few
place.
dollars.
Ms. Quinn, I'll let you- You're
to
stepping over me, but I'll let you continue
$15
speaking.
million.
Please.
$10 to $15 million. You don't think that deserves public input? And that's just a piece of the money that's left over.
No, it's a plan, and that plan is gonna go before the public at the election.
But you've already made a commitment.
It is a plan.
You made a commitment.
No, it is a plan.
It says commitment on the
If
township's
public
website.
decides they do not agree with the plan, then they vote no.
It doesn't say plan, it says
It
commitment.
is a plan.
It says commitment.
It is a plan.
It says commitment. You can't change it to plan now. It says commitment. That's what it says. A commitment is a promise. You've promised to spend $10 to $15 million.
It's voted
You
down.
had a meeting with the sports organizations and said, we have this money for you. There was no public input on that decision. None. So I'm asking how that can happen. How can our representatives decide to spend $10 to $15 million plus of public money, our money, with no public input? How does that happen?
You're gonna vote on it.
You work for us.
You're gonna vote
It's
on it.
our money.
You're gonna
You
vote.
can't decide to make a commitment with absolutely zero input. We have no representation.
This is a plan that I put together administratively, and
I didn't elect you.
I passed it to Orlando to review, and apparently they.
He's one representative out of many. How does he have the final say with no public input?
Thank you, Ms. Corn, for your time. Who else would like to speak? Sir. And you, sir, will be our final speaker. A 30-minute time will expire after your time.
Ira Eckstein, Glen Oaks. The last council meeting, I asked a question, I had made the statement from the paperwork I got from the township that the pedestrian bridge at the pickleball courts was $32,000. And you told me that I was wrong, but you couldn't tell me what the number was. But you said, I'll get you that information.
I'll get you that information. Mr. Cars, do you have that
Do
information?
not have that information tonight.
So you're lying again.
Okay, since Mr. Eckstein is done, yes, ma'am.
Carol Colacheco, Timbervert. I don't come to many meetings, and this is why. It looks like it's the residents against council. And I really have a problem with that. Everybody up here seems disturbed. You're a little snarky with people. I understand if they're asking the same questions, but these are just concerned residents, and they're just not concerned for themselves. They're concerned for all of us. So I have a hard time when people ask the cost of something and you just say you don't know. That's the end of it. That's it. You don't know. Do you write something down? Do you get the figures for the next meeting? Like, what's going on here?
Yes, I'm not gonna spout off a figure if I don't know what that.
Okay,
figure is.
so are you gonna get the figure for that?
Yes.
How are you, did you write something down so that you know what you're
Yes, I do
getting?
have information in front of me, yes.
Okay, so the next meeting that we come to, everything that everybody talked about tonight, you're gonna have a figure for them.
Yeah, there was a question about cannabis revenues. There was also a question about the amount of taxes generated through the outlets. Is there something I missed?
Yeah, there was some more, wasn't there?
The bridge.
The bridge.
I asked the bridge 2 weeks ago.
solar panels, you wanted to know about the money and all these different things, and you didn't have figures for it. So I'm gonna come back to the next meeting, and I'm hoping that you're gonna have the figures for all the questions that people asked. Will you be here?
I don't know if I'll have numbers for you for solar panels, because I don't know.
Well, whatever
That's
question
not
was
a
asked, okay,
calculable
an
thing.
estimate, whatever question was asked tonight, are you gonna try to get something?
Quite easy to get the numbers for the cannabis, quite easy to get the number for. the
Okay,
other.
because that's the thing for me. It's very disappointing to come here and it just seems like there's no use to come because everything's already been decided. We can't do anything. The only thing that we could do is elect different people.
So I'm sorry you feel the way you do, but you mentioned something when you first came up about everyone up here looks disturbed. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, I watched the facial expressions, and there's some more than others, but it's like it's a fight. It's like when husband and wife are talking and like the husband doesn't want to hear it again. It's not a good feeling in here. It's really not. And like I said, you don't want to come back. You know, I'm trying to get my neighbors together and come and see what's going on, but they don't want to come. They come once and they're like, forget it. It's a lost cause. We don't have any say. And it's really disturbing to live here in the township and feel that way. And I don't want to feel like that. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but this is like hitting a brick wall. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. We have missed our 30-minute time limit. That's the end of the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr. Parliamentary,
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis,
Nothing to report this time.
Captain Colmeyer, Mr. McGill,
Nothing to add, thank you.
Mr. Mignon,
Thank you for coming. Have a great night and a great week.
Mrs. Albright Troxel,
Thank you for coming.
Mrs. Grace Love,
Thank you for coming. Have a great night.
Mr. Nash,
Have a great night.
Mrs. Walters. Thank you for coming. Have a great week. Mrs. Winters, Mr. Mercado.
Thank you for coming out this evening. At our next meeting, we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month here, recognizing individuals that made contributions to our community. That starts at 7:30. I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a great evening.